Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another epic evolution figure that we are here to check out, and this time we've got ourselves a Danger Pack. As you can see, we have the Poposaurus, and this is one that I was actually really quite excited about because it's obviously a new species to the Mattel line, and not only that, it's a new species to my collection because I definitely do not have any Poposaurus figures in my collection, so that straight away is really quite exciting. And another thing that's pretty interesting about this is you might be looking at it and being like, well, I've never heard of that dinosaur. It's actually not a dinosaur. In fact, it's much more closely related to crocodiles than, dinosaurs. So it's all around a very interesting figure from Mattel, and I will say it looks really nice here so far. Definitely a gorgeous looking figure. But you can see as far as the Danger Packs go, it's pretty similar to what we saw with the Strike Attacks when it comes to the box art. Pretty much, laid out the same way and everything. We just have a nice big Jurassic World logo right here through the bottom. But then if we turn it around and take a look at the back, you can see all of the other figures that are in this wave of Danger Packs. And you might look at this and be like, wow, I can't believe they released 5. Well, they did release 5 figures with this wave, but there's actually only 4 sets because this is 1, 2, 3, and then these 2 are a set together. So, it's actually just 4 sets. So it's kind of your standard when it comes to these. You usually get 4 different figures. So let's go ahead, pop the box open, and check out our Poposaurus. So here is the Poposaurus. Now we can see the other side, get a nice look at it, and like I said, it is very impressive. It always is. Mattel figures are always, in my opinion, very impressive, especially when it comes to the sculpt. Sometimes they're lacking in paint, but the sculpts are always impressive, and again, same case here. Mattel really has done a great job on this, added so much difference when it comes to the skin texture and detailing, and, they just, in my opinion, always go above and beyond to give us a great sculpt, and they have 100% done that here with this Poposaurus. So, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it and check it out from there. Another thing that's really exciting about this figure is, the fact, of course, that it's a Pseudosaukian, but also the fact that it's a Pseudosaukian from the Triassic period. And we don't have all that many Triassic period figures in the Mattel line so far, so it's always a great thing when we get a new one, in my opinion. We just generally, when it comes to figure form, don't have enough, Triassic models, so of course I'm very excited about this one. But as you start up here at the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt looks really nice. You have some gorgeous skin texture. You can see very reptilian scale detail, especially there shining on the lower jaws. We have kind of like a light gray on the lower jaw, but even up here on the head you can see it looks really nice. We've got a bluish tone, and I think the blue looks really good on the figure. You can also see we have kind of like a maroon, sort of a reddish tone here running up through from the nostrils up through the eye socket, and that as well looks really nice. Definitely plays off of the rest of the coloration quite nicely. We also have a yellow eye, and it does appear to have a black pupil, kind of a black slit-like pupil. You can also see it kind of shining, so it looks like we've got a nice gloss coat there. Again, we can see the nostrils sculpted out. We do have an articulated jaw on the figure, which can open ridiculously wide, so much so that the skin actually disconnects there. So maybe a little too wide. It actually kind of gets jammed when you go to close it right there, and then you have to kind of force it closed. So that's about the comfortable length, I think, for the mouth to open before that kind of occurs. But you can see the teeth are kind of bulky, like you usually see for a Mattel figure, but I don't think they look bad. They are definitely sloppily painted, that's for sure. You can see the paint is kind of like, honestly, run everywhere. It looks a little better on this side, I think, than the first side, but they are pretty sloppy. The teeth on the lower jaw, kind of sloppy, but not too bad. I think they don't look terrible. You can see they're kind of sculpted there into the tongue almost, but we also have a nice pinkish tone there for the tongue itself, and no coloration on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, unfortunately. The jaw does move nicely. As long as you don't push it too far, you can see you can pretty much articulate it to any point you would like, and then of course even closed. As you move down into the neck of the Poposaurus, you can see we start to pick up almost that sort of crocodilian sort of a look here when it comes to the skin texture running along the top of the animal. But as you move down here to the side, you have kind of more vibrant scales, sort of big and bumpy scales, but definitely, scales nonetheless, whereas we have more of almost like a scoot-like sort of scaling up here on the top. And then as you lead down here to the underside, you can see we transition from that blue to that same light gray we see on the lower jaw, and that looks really nice on top of the articulated jaw. Oh, there we go. It's really stiff, but we do have articulation in the neck. It can go down and go up. Obviously, I haven't articulated that yet, but I could see the joint. You can see it right there, so I knew we would have that articulation. It is very, very stiff. Definitely needs to be kind of worn in a little bit. One thing I do notice, though, you can kind of see a gap right here behind the lower jaw. That's not something I usually see on Mattel figures, so that's kind of interesting. You can see that gap is pretty obvious right there. As you continue to move a little further down into the body, you see a lot of variation again to the scales. You've got kind of like bumpy osteoderm-like scales and then finer scaling moving through. You see the same thing as you move down here into the arm, as well as some nice muscle definition. Moving down into the hand, you can see that we've got quite a few fingers here. Now, I am no professional on the anatomy of Poposaurus, so I can't say for sure if we have the correct digits on the hands or the feet. If you guys are more familiar with the species, you'll have to let me know. I only know a little bit about it. It's not something that I've ever really looked too much into. But again, the hands and fingers are nicely sculpted. The nails are nicely sculpted if my camera would focus on it, but no nail paint, of course. Moving back here into the stomach, you can see that the gray kind of leads up here into the stomach again as we move through. And you can also see that we have more of the blue up here. And we have more of that sort of, again, crocodilian kind of look here running along the top. As you move down into the thigh, look at all the variation to the scales. You have larger scales, kind of clusters of larger scales moving down there, but really nice fine scaling moving down through the back of the thigh. As you move down into the calf, you can almost see a little difference in the scale detail of the calf as well. You've got the kneecap right there. And then you move down into the foot sculpt. The toes are nicely sculpted. We've got scoots running down the toes. Nicely sculpted nails, but again, no nail paint, unfortunately. There are dew claws present, though, for the Poposaurus. And then as we move back up here into the tail, you can see that very unique look to the tail, which looks pretty cool. And you can also see that in that area, we get more of that tone of like that reddish, maroon, brownish sort of a tone. It's a very interesting tone that we had there in the face. And you can see how it kind of stripes down as you lead out the length of the tail. You also get a very crocodilian looking tail as you move out because, wow, my camera will not focus on it. There we go. Because you have very like scoot-like sort of scales moving out through the length of the entire tail. Nice curve to the tail as well. A little bit more curved than we often see from Mattel, which I think looks really cool actually. And then here along the underside, it looks pretty much as you would expect on the underside of like a crocodile. So again, giving it that sort of resemblance to a crocodile. Here on the other side, obviously not too similar, but they have definitely given it some similarities as far as the skin texture goes. But over here on the other side, you can see again, it looks pretty much the same. The head's pretty straightforward, so you're not really going to see much difference. The arms, of course, are articulated, so it's up to you to move it how you would like. You can see the arms can go back pretty far, and of course go forward pretty far. I'm sure we can keep going, yeah, if we chose to. Same deal for the legs, again, back, forward pretty nicely. No issues as far as those moving. And then, of course, a swivel tail as always. But the only real big difference that you're going to see on this side is the fact that the one leg is trailing here on this side and the tail curves toward us over here. But other than that, there's not really much of anything that's different. It looks like it's almost the same design and everything as far as the coloration goes. Maybe slightly different, but definitely, again, a really nice species choice and honestly a beautiful figure for sure. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Poposaurus, you are looking at just a hair under 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. And then for a height, I guess this would be the highest point, so just shy of 2 3/4 inches or about 7 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Poposaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being here next to our Mattel Poposaurus. And honestly, you can see it's pretty much exactly where you would expect it to be when it comes to an attack pack, danger pack, wild pack sort of size range. And you can obviously tell that they're looking straight into the face of the Colovosaurus. They are almost the same size exactly, maybe slightly shorter on the part of the Poposaurus, but definitely a little bit longer. If we actually get the two of them in screen here together, you can definitely see the Poposaurus is slightly longer. However, if we bring in a Mattel Velociraptor, you can see the Velociraptor is a bit larger than our Poposaurus, just generally taller, I think, is the most obvious thing here. I think lengthwise, they're probably kind of similar. We've also got a comparison next to the Prestosuchus from Mattel, which you can see is quite a bit beefier and just in general a little thicker than our Poposaurus. As well as our Nothosaurus, which you can see is pretty similar, I would say, in size to the Poposaurus. Not too far off when it comes to a size. Currently, it's looking a little taller just because of the positioning I have for the neck, but they're not too far off overall. And then one final and very random comparison, we have one of the older Mattel baby Tyrannosaurs, because you can see that, it's a very small figure, and the Poposaurus is only slightly larger, I think, than that young Rex. So if you happen to have one of those older, younger Tyrannosaurs, that should help to give you an idea of the size. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Epic Evolution Danger Pack Poposaurus is definitely another nice figure. I'm actually a huge fan of this one. It might be one of my favorites to come along in quite some time, because I always love when they give us species like this, especially considering it's a species we really don't get ever. Like, I've never had one, I've never seen anybody make one, but also just generally because I love the Triassic period and I love getting more obscure species from the Triassic period. So that's definitely very exciting as far as this one goes. And Mattel has really done a great job on it. I think the sculpt looks very vibrant, very impressive. There is a mountain of different variation to the skin texture and scales. Honestly, everywhere you look on it, when you look at the face compared to the neck, and then the neck compared to the body, and the body compared to the tail, even the lower side compared to the upper side, there is a lot of variation to the skin texture on this, which shows that, again, Mattel really put a lot of effort into sculpting this one out to give it a very, very highly detailed appearance. And they absolutely have succeeded at that. I think the sculpt looks really nice. I also quite like the pose. I like that we have kind of like a little bit of a crouch to it, sort of, as well as that nice curve in the tail. It's just, most times when you get a Mattel figure, you don't really see a whole lot going on as far as the pose goes. They're just kind of usually, standing straight up, almost neutral as far as the positioning goes. But this one, you could see, again, we've got some life to it with that nice sort of a crouch and then the curve in the tail. It looks really good. On top of that, we've got some pretty nice paint work for it. I think the paint apps look nice and almost give us the appearance of paint from head to tail. The only thing really missing would have been nail paint, but outside of that, I think the paint apps look really quite nice, and it's honestly a nice visual that Mattel can give us to show us that they don't need a ton of paint apps on their figures to still make them look really good. On top of all of that, you also have the articulation, which is always fun. I love these smaller figures, again, the danger packs and stuff, just because you have articulation, which is something that, there's no action feature prohibiting the articulation. It's just straight up a posable figure, which is also something that I really quite like. Also, if you wanted to get a look at the Jurassic Facts app code, I will include an image there at the end of the video for you to add this one to your collection, because I forgot to show that in the closer look. But either way, definitely a really nice figure, and definitely a figure I recommend picking up for sure. So if you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, make sure you keep checking your local Walmart, because that seems to be where it's showing up currently, and that of course is where I found mine. So make sure you check your local Walmart, grab this if you do see it, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.